Well, good morning and welcome to today's episode of Wisdom of the Soul. This is sort of part two of a class that we began last week with our discussion of the Sermon on the Mount, and in particular the introduction to that summary of all of Christ's teachings, the Beatitudes. And there were, or are, 8 Beatitudes, which we reviewed last week. And if you've yet to hear that, it's a podcast and also streaming on our YouTube channel. You can always find us with a Google search, just Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. That's the best way to find all of the material. This class, which is almost 1 year old now, podcasts, I have over 500 episodes. That's like 12 years old. And if you search for Wisdom of the Soul or some other iteration, you're not going to be successful as just searching Ageless Wisdom Mystery School on Google, or open your favorite podcast app and search Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. Same thing with YouTube. We benefit if you subscribe on YouTube, also subscribing on your favorite podcast player. Supports us, helps us, lifts us in keyword searches. So yeah, I get an ego stroke too, but that's not the important part. The important part is if you can rate and review and subscribe, we get a benefit from that. YouTube and the various podcatchers will lift us in those searches. So thanks for that. I got some very nice donations this week. I very much appreciate that. Helps defer our internet costs. Today we're going to do the Buddhist version, I guess we could say, of the Sermon on the Mount. Does Buddhism have a similar how-to guide? Remember we mentioned last week that Christ was really not interested in religion. He had some rather harsh things to say about religious leaders. In Matthew, Christ even says, religious leaders crush you with their rules and their dogma. So Christ really, he was not a Christian. Buddha was not a Buddhist. They're mystics. And so just as the Sermon on the Mount is a kind of an instruction manual or a how-to guide, so too the Noble Eightfold Path. So after our opening meditation, I'll outline briefly the Four Noble Truths, the cornerstone of Buddhism, and then we'll dwell upon the fourth of the Four Noble Truths, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. That's the real how-to manual of Buddhism. It's all in there. Everything you need to know about Buddhism. And it's expansive. Can be found in the Four Noble Truths, and in particular, the how-to part of it, the fourth one, the Eightfold Path. Pretty cool. So you'll be able to compare and contrast. And, you can be a secular Buddhist. It's not really a religion, though some practice it that way, and still love your Christianity or your Judaism or your identity as a Muslim or a Jain or a Sikh or whatever, a panentheist, a Neoplatonist, whatever rocks your boat. I like collecting them all. I'm very much a cherry picker, and I embrace what resonates as true for me and logical. Remember, we're often about developing intuition, but let's not forget our friend logic. Plays a very important part, very important role in understanding spiritual virtues. That's really what is spirituality but virtues, ethics, and morals, and attempting to refine the self, our sense of self, to be better. And others benefit from that, and not surprisingly, we do too. So that's what we have on tap for today. I very much appreciate you being here with us live whenever you can. And let's do our opening meditation. So if you get comfortable in your chairs and sit up straight, though certainly you can lean back and allow yourself to be supported by the back of the chair. Feet flat on the floor, that's important. And as you close your eyes now, create and sense that connection from the bottom of your feet into the earth. The earth is the common ground of being, in form, incarnated, in space and time. So imagine how a tree feels to be deeply rooted into the earth, electrically, like a lightning rod, pulling off static energy. What could I say? Non-cohesive energy. Let that be grounded. That's where all energy, all spirit wishes to go, is into the earth, into the mother, the mater, the matter. And it, pun intended, it does matter. Imagine how a tree would feel to know this is my spot, that I belong here. This is where I grow and experience my connection to all things in the material world of space and time. And then imagine standing open and receptive at the crown chakra on the very top of your head, as if there were a funnel that stood open and receptive to a gentle downward precipitation of spirit, a life force, consciousness, awareness, love. Peaceful, calm, coherent harmony that gently rains down into your being. So these are polarities, the sky and the earth. And you're like a bar magnet or a battery that's connected to both. And feel yourself slowly recharging, restoring, renewing, revitalizing. And the feeling that you're pretending or just making this all up, well, that's exactly the right feeling. The brain and the unconscious mind does not distinguish between real and imagined. It's real enough. And you can imagine this energy from sky and earth commingling, balancing. Visualize it as a light of whatever color seems appropriate to you. Experience it as a gentle warmth, however it occurs to you. Imagine these polarities slowly filling you. Starting in the center of the rib cage, filling the heart, the spaces around the heart, and radiating out gently into the other spaces that sometimes feel lonely and empty. Allow yourself to become vulnerable. Let any sense of alienation or separation, of loss or grief come forward and be gently embraced by this presence, this warmth. Radiating out, filled, fulfilled, warm and radiant. Imagining that radiance expanding beyond the walls of the room that you're in the building. Sharing without condition a sense of radiating all across the city and the state where you live. Continuing to expand, for the more you give, the more you receive from beyond space and time. You lower your resistance and thus enhance the flow through you, such that your warm and gentle and loving radiance embraces the world. Everyone you know, everyone you've never met, all of the animals, our pets, the farm animals, the wildlife, even the insects. The plant kingdom, the mineral kingdom, in an all-inclusive, nothing ignored sense of embracing the one life, radiating that peace and that love in all directions across the galaxy, hundreds and thousands of light years, and continuing to expand to nearby galaxies and clusters of galaxies and the superclusters of galaxies to infinity without reservation, without limitation. For each of us is that wholeness. There is no separation, despite appearances of forms and figures and objects. In many ways, our physical sense and sensation deceives us, suggesting this is not that. And yet, all that appears to be distinct and separate is immersed in an ocean of energy, a unified field of consciousness, awareness, often called love. And this unified, eternal and infinite field of energy, of consciousness, has its currents and eddies, its tides, its rivers. The rainy weather in California recently, I heard, was the result of a river in the sky, imagine. And you're no doubt aware that there are rivers running through the great oceans of the world. And again, tides and eddies and whirlpools, and our senses perceive these. As you will see a wave, but not the energy that manifests as the wave, as you will observe the wind in the trees, but never see the wind. wonderful and extraordinary as our sense and sensation is, it's only part of the story. Perceivers of energy in different frequencies. Sound is an energy. It has frequency and pitch. It has amplitude or volume. Color has frequency. White light contains all the colors, each its own frequency. Yet there is sound beyond our ability to hear, and light beyond our ability to see. It's good from time to time to acknowledge the limits of our awareness in form. And in that way, the one life is in us, and we are in the one life. If you haven't already, take 2 or 3 nice, slow, deep breaths, pulling in strength and power as you inhale. Hold for just a moment as you peak, and then as you exhale, create and sense a letting go feeling. As if you're putting down your struggle, putting down your efforts to accomplish and attain, your concern about being accepted by others. For a few minutes, just put it all down. Be okay with who and what you are, where you are, even why you are. Just accept it. Everything's fine. Everything's okay. In this eternal moment. Consider the perpetual freshness, the newness of each tick of the clock, each beat of your heart. For life and space and time is in continual flux. In the bigger picture, it is permanent and unchanging. But in the world, it unfolds moment by moment. To be here now, to be here right now, is to dismiss your past regrets and resentments, for they live only in your imagination. Your memory, you may say, which is imagined. And similarly, dismiss your concerns about the future, for there is no such thing other than the images in your mind, your emotional projections and mental wanderings and wonderings. But reality, the truth of things, is in the eternity of the instant, which has a rhythm, an in-breath and an out-breath. The present moment has its phases and stages, its comings and goings, its rising and falling. To be here now is to honor the present moment. regardless of disposition or happenstance. And commonly, we practice this awareness by watching our body breathe itself. So let's take just 3 minutes to watch your breath. Find your spot at the bottom of the nose, the tip of the nose, the septum between the nostrils, just inside the rim of the nostrils. You find your place there. Trust your intuition. And for just 3 minutes, watch your body breathing itself, all by itself, until you hear my voice again. Prepare to return to the wide awake state in 3 simple steps. First, just simply form the intention. You'll do this, of course, when you meditate without a narrator on your own. Begin by forming the intention. It feels like it's time to conclude this meditation. And then 2, take a few seconds to experience a transition, a kind of a rising up toward the waking state. And then 3, his eyes open, wide awake, back in the room, take a nice big breath, pull in all that vital oxygen, and then let it go and stretch a little bit like you're waking up in the morning. Back in the room, wide awake, feeling fine, feeling better than before. Good. Hope you enjoyed that. I'm a little stuffy in the nose this morning, so rather than watching my breath at the bottom of my nose, I was watching my body breathe through my mouth. And I don't think I've ever mentioned that when we do the Vipassana, the insight meditation, the breath watching. But that's perfectly okay. You got two ways to breathe. So if you have some morning allergies or a little stuffy in the nose, then it feels easier to breathe through the mouth, then just put your awareness there. The point is to watch your body breathing as the one who watches, as the witness and not the breather, so that we can learn to watch our monkey mind and not believe that's us. And just because a thought occurs to you doesn't mean it's your thought. And you don't have to identify with those often negative and sometimes even bizarre thoughts that occur to us. Sometimes we're even ashamed to find ourselves thinking along a certain line. It's like, out, damn spot. What is that? Don't fight it. Don't struggle. Just put it down. Let it pass. And so too with feelings. Sit with them. Don't push them away. Don't resist anything. The way out of a hurtful feeling is through. Not away from, but into and through and out the other side. You gotta feel it to heal it. If you push away from it, it chases you. Have you ever noticed? Crazy thoughts, negativity, heartache, depression. The more you resist it, the more it haunts you. The bigger it gets, the scarier it gets. I'm going to get you. Turn and confront it. Say, okay, have your way with me. Devour me. Consume me. And voila, the mask falls away. You get the insight, the hit, the revelation, the epiphany. Oh my God, that's what that's about. That pain and that suffering was just an alert. It was just trying to get my attention, and I was so afraid of it. The more I avoided it, the bigger the fear got. It was a big trick. Maybe I shouldn't call it a trick. It's a grand awareness. You're a spiritual being. You're made for this. If you're not. All right, let's talk first of all about the Four Noble Truths, and I'm going to skate through the first three and then dwell upon number 4 of the Four Noble Truths. Again, all of Buddhism is contained in the Four Noble Truths. It's pretty cool. But having said that, let me hasten to add that this is still an enormous body of knowledge and understanding, one that never ends. You can devote your entire life and every hour of the day to the study of the process of awakening. And as awakened as you become, and as clear as things become for you, there's always more. In fact, you begin to ask better questions. I heard Jack Canfield, no, not Jack Canfield, oh my goodness, the Buddhist teacher. I'll think of his name in a minute. Tell a story about a Sufi master who spent many, many years studying the wisdom of the ages. And he had quite a profound understanding of the truth of things when he died and passed over, and he approaches, as the story goes, the threshold, the gates of heaven, of paradise. as a Muslim would refer to it. Often, actually, I guess all religions use paradise as well as heaven, nirvana. And an angel says, hold on there, buddy. Before you come in through these gates into paradise, prove to me that you are worthy. Prove to me that you understand sufficiently the truth of things. And the Sufi master says, hold on a minute. How do I know you're who you say you are, this great archangel, and not just some figment of my imagination, of my deranged sense of being, of my confusion and worry and doubt? And before the angel can respond, a voice from inside shouts out, let him in! He's one of us. That's a story I like a lot. There's always more. This is very Socratic. Remember when Socrates was on trial in Athens for corrupting the youth of Athens? The prosecutor said, so, you are said to be the wisest man in all of Greece. How could this be? Prove to us that you're the wisest man ever. And without hesitating, Socrates said, well, I am the wisest man because I know nothing. And those of you who believe you understand are fools. So, in the Socratic sense, and the Sufi sense, and the mystical sense, the sense of what we call panentheism or the perennial philosophy, the more you know, the more you realize you do not know. The more you know, the more you understand, the better questions you ask. And there is no end to that. We talk about today the Noble Eightfold Path. It is a pathless path. Not that I want to speak to you in riddles, but there is no destination. It's an infinite, endless path. It becomes more and more wondrous all the time, more and more beautiful. And so I'm going to do something I rarely do. I did this last week. I'm going to do it again today. I'm going to access some notes because, again, I haven't memorized everything I want to say about the Eightfold Path. First of all, I want to quote Buddha himself from one of his sutras and remind you that Buddhism was an oral tradition for 500 years before anybody began to write it down. In that sense, it's quite surprising that we have these teachings, these sutras, the Dharma, so-called, the teachings, and that there's such a consensus. The stories of Christ and his teachings, like Sermon on the Mount, which we talked about last week, those were only 80 years old before they started being written down. The first Gospels began 80 or 100 years after the death of Christ, the crucifixion of Christ. So we do have these words, and yet they're kind of a consensus or an agreement of what was said by the living Buddha 2,500 plus years ago. And one that I want to call your attention to, he simply says, forgive the pronoun he, she, they. Not going to get caught up in pronouns. He who walks in the Eightfold Noble Path with unswerving determination is sure to reach nirvana, which is enlightenment or understanding. Again, a sense of heaven, except Buddhists are very clear that there are no places, right? There's no separation, there are no places. So to go to heaven or to go to hell, and Buddhists do believe in hell, they have a couple of levels. They have a deep hell, and they also have a kind of a hellish place called uh, the hungry ghost, where you have these very strong desires and appetites and thirst that is never quenched. And all of us know a bit of that. The fact that our desire natures are never fulfilled, not for very long anyway. And then it's on to the next desire. What a trap that is. So the Four Noble Truths are where Buddhism begins, and again contain the essence, the germ of all of the teachings. And the very first noble truth is that you shall know suffering. Seems like an odd place to begin a philosophy, much less a religion. Many people practice this philosophy of Buddhism as a religion. Many others are secular. You shall know suffering means basically sickness and injury, aging and death. Not merely your own sickness, aging, and death, but all around you. When you're little kids, your grandparents die. Um, your your pets die. Um, your friends' grandparents die. And then a couple decades later, your parents start to die. And your friends' parents die. And so it goes. And as we get older, our friends begin to die, many of them much too soon. So it's not merely when Buddhists talk about suffering as sickness, injury, aging, and death, it's not just our own suffering. It's that we're naturally compassionate and empathetic beings. And life is full of suffering. There's even a passage in Genesis around the story of Adam and Eve where God says, now ye shall know suffering. Christ on the cross, what is that? But a demonstration of a willingness to suffer well, to pick up the cross and carry it, and to account for the fact that this is not a bed of roses, and even if it were, beware of the thorns. There is beauty like a rose, yet there is the thorn. So be careful. You will suffer. The second noble truth is that most of our suffering, beyond sickness, aging, and death, is self-imposed. It's the result of our desire nature, of an attempt to acquire enough material stuff or enough status, position, leverage to accomplish high degree of acceptance from others in the world, a false sense of power and superiority and domination, again through money or status. And that all of us want to be happy, but we continue to do things that cause our suffering. What a tragedy. There's a great reason to develop your compassion for yourself and for others, that in spite of our best efforts, we remain seduced by this treadmill existence of, gosh, if I only had this, then I would be happy. And we defer the happiness that is sitting right here, right now. I mean, the profound ecstasy of the beauty, experiencing the miracles all around us, because I need a new car. And maybe for some very practical reasons you need a new car. But is it the car you want, or does it have to have street appeal, curb appeal? In the house you call it curb appeal. Does it matter what other people think about the car that you drive? Is it a mode of transportation to get from A to B, or is it a status symbol? And well, the other objects that we need that we think will make our lives easier and more convenient, and then you run out of space on the kitchen counter. It's like, my God, the microwave and the microwave oven and the air fryer and the Cuisinart and the juicer and the toaster and I'm running out of room on the counter for all these conveniences. I think it was a Saturday Night Live routine that I saw once years ago where Dan Aykroyd or somebody is advertising the newest handy-dandy device for the home, the broom. And he holds up this broom and he talks about all the features of the broom. Nothing to plug in, no bags to empty. And he's completely reframing how convenient a broom is. But no, we need a robot vacuum cleaner, a Roomba. Is that what they're called? Or the latest Dyson stick or whatever. And I'm not above any of this. How do I know any of this? But having suffered it myself, and I continue to feel the attraction, to feel the appeal. Amazon is a drug. Buying, the package arriving at the doorstep. Oh boy, it's Christmas. I forgot what I ordered. What's in the box? Let's hurriedly rip it open. Oh boy. And for a few moments we're excited, but it never really fills us. Noble truth number 2. Most of our suffering is self-imposed because we're not aware of this, the way this desire nature runs us. Noble truth number 3, there's a way out of all of this. Through meditation and a practice of mindfulness in your daily life and affairs, developing the virtues, studying the mind, pursuing wisdom, that we can awaken to the point that we can be free of suffering. That which comes from our desire nature being unfulfilled, and even that which certainly seems imposed upon us beyond our control. We can learn to suffer more elegantly, more gracefully, or exquisitely. Through non-attachment, experience the suffering, but having a different relationship to it, if you can imagine such a thing. And the 4th noble truth is the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the how-to. And these 8 points fall into 3 different areas. Again, this is the summary of all the Dharma. And I should explain the 3 jewels. The Buddha nature, which is Christ consciousness, expanded awareness, nirvana, realization. The 2nd jewel is the Dharma, which is the teaching, the principles. And then the 3rd jewel is the Sangha, which is your community. And it's rather the Trinity of Buddhism, if you will. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the Father, Son, and Mother of Buddhism is the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So when we look at the Eightfold Noble Path, the first 2 points have to do with wisdom, the pursuit of wisdom. The next 3, number 3, 4, and 5, are the morality. This is heart and soul, the center of the Eightfold Noble Path. This is the embodiment of virtue, of ethics and morality. And then the final 3 are the study of the mind, the little games that the mind plays. And we've done some classes, which I hope you'll find valuable, from a couple of months ago, late last year, on the nature of intrusive thinking, task-related thoughts as distinguished from task-unrelated thoughts, uh, how logic is different from intuition. Uh, that's all part of the study of the mind. So let's go through this, and I'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. So the first noble truth is sort of, again, well, it's the beginning, but again, there is no beginning, there is no end. When I say beginning, I mean the first noble truth embraces all of them. And you'll notice how these overlap. You'll notice, hopefully, a flow as we move through these 8 steps. They're not discrete. They're not separate. They really overlap and flow into one thing, which again, is in keeping with the realization that there is only one thing at work at all times. And that's the essence of the first noble truth, which is, of the first step in the Eightfold Noble Path, which is right view, or wise view, or wise understanding. Commonly it's called right view. And it really begins with the question of, what shall we do with this life that we've been given? What am I going to do with this? Not merely in career or vocation, not merely in avocation or spare time, but in our relationships with other people and our relationship with ourselves and the universe. What are we to make of this life that we've been born into, barely remember growing into? There's only little tiny pieces of our past that we recall, though that can be developed. What are we going to do with it? Who are we? Why are we here? Basic philosophical questions. And again, at the risk of repeating myself, I want to emphasize the fact that one of the common links throughout humanity and the animal kingdom, and arguably the plant kingdom and the mineral kingdom too, but certainly the animal kingdom, including humans, is that we all want to be happy. Every animal will run away if you try to capture it. It does not want to be captured and controlled. It does not want to be killed. Even insects will scurry away. That means they are sentient. They want to live. They want to enjoy their lives, whether they're insects or animals or humans. Humans, however, have this special layer of second thinking. Suggested that's why humans are a special, animals evolved to a particular level in the image of the Creator. That means we can think about our thinking. We can reflect upon our emotional feelings. We can, though sometimes we refuse to, be conscious enough to consider the consequences of our behavior before we do the behavior. If only we did that more often. So we all want to be happy, but we continue to do things that cause us to suffer. And then we spend our lives looking outside of ourselves for who and what is causing the suffering and attempt to control them. There's a story in Buddhism about a man who comes home drunk. I mean, way drunk. And he stumbles in the house, and on his way he falls down, tumbles down the staircase, gets sort of battered and bruised, and abrased and cut up, and curses himself, continues back into the house, goes to the bathroom and washes his cuts and his bruises, and attempts to put ointment and bandage them, and finally tumbles into bed. He wakes up the next morning, his wife is yelling at him, cursing him for being such a worthless drunk. And he said, I wasn't drunk. What makes you think I was drunk? And she said, because you put the ointment and the bandages on the mirror. That's us. We're blaming everybody except ourselves. We don't want responsibility. Why would I be the cause of my suffering? Why would I do that to me? Well, that's a pretty good question. We want to be happy, but we keep doing things. It's our desire nature. It's our sense of attainment that we ought to be able to get someplace where everything is going to be good, that we can finally finish that to-do list. Hey, nobody's ever finished their to-do list. All right? Even if you don't write it down, everybody's got a to-do list, or a wish, or I want, or goals or dreams or bucket lists or whatever. Nobody's ever, you get close and the list fills up. We are our own worst critic, our own worst enemy. So stop blaming that which is outside of you. This is right view. This is an understanding that everything is connected, that if we understand karma and we understand cause and effect, we will begin to see that life is a reflection of our awareness, of our consciousness. Life is a mirror. Life is a two-way street, but most of us emphasize the side that's being done to us. And everything that happens, we say, well, this happened to me. Things do not happen to you. Things happen, and we take them personally. It didn't happen to you. It just happened. Part of right view is understanding that there is no separation, something we keep coming back to because it is such an important point. There is no birth and death. There is no beginning and end. We seem to agree that life is eternal, that we either go to heaven or we go to hell. Again, in Western philosophy and religion, that's a place, that's a location. In Eastern philosophy, it's a level of conscious awareness that you magnetize. So finding yourself in paradise is you've realized it. You've let everything that is not paradise fall away. But there is no location called heaven that is not right here, right now. And maybe more apparent to you, no place that is hell except right here, right now. What you reincarnate into is different in space and time, but not in terms of your spiritual essence. You don't go anywhere, you're already everywhere, equally present. So when does life begin? It doesn't. It always has been. And similarly, no death. If something lives eternally, how could it have a beginning? It's illogical to believe something could live forever but have a beginning. It's just illogical. If it's going to be eternal, it's got to be eternal on both ends. No beginning, no end is now, always has been, always will be. That's part of the idea of no separation. It also means no dualism. In space and time, yes, polarities, dualism, all or nothing is relatively true, sometimes absolutely true, depends on the situation. But outside of space and time, in the spiritual energy reality of things, there is no yin and yang. Remember, the yin and yang is round, it's whole, has no beginning and has no end. You just come back around into yourself. A empirical physical scientist will tell you that as near as we understand physics, if you could get on a rocket and fly to the edge of the universe, you would end up exactly where you started. But since our brain is limited to 3 dimensions, it's really hard to grok that, to get your head around that. So physics and metaphysics agree. Nothing is ever created and nothing dies. You learned in high school the conservation of energy, conservation of mass and energy, that all mass is just energy at a very slow frequency. And you can't use it up. Okay? It cannot be created, it cannot be destroyed. Only forms are impermanent. Physical objects are impermanent. Conditions, thoughts, and feelings all fade in time. And from our understanding comes action in thought, speech, and behavior. This is the meaning of karma. Karma means action. And we're going to talk about right action in a minute. Let's go to point number 2. The second step in the Eightfold Path is right intention. Sometimes this is called wise thinking or wise aspiration, right intention. We heard this in the Sermon on the Mount last week in the Beatitudes, blessed are the pure of heart. And so wise thinking includes feelings, all right? It means good intentions and good motivation. It's goodwill. It's wholesome aspirations and selfless service for the greater good. Setting that separate, selfish, self-centered self aside and give your life away in service to others, for they are you and you are them. There is no other except in the appearance of things. Buddhists often talk about renunciation. This is part of the second step of right intention. Now, renunciation to a monk is much more severe than renunciate or a monk or a nun. Buddhists from the very beginning have always been very non-sexist, honoring women as completely equal to men in every respect. Dalai Lama even said a few months ago, could there be a female Dalai Lama when he passes? He said, oh yeah, definitely. So a monk or a nun, renunciation is to refrain from having marriage and sexual relationships, for example. It's a more strict diet, never eating meat. The only monks I know that are permitted to eat meat are the Shaolin monks in China, who are warriors. They're warrior monks. Again, they're not aggressors. They're all about self-defense and defending the weak. But they are badass, man. They are. I'm going to read about Shaolin, look at some of the YouTube stuff on the Shaolin monks. Their training is, again, perpetual. They never stop training. And you never want to cross one of these guys. But to you and me, renunciation simply means letting go of the impurities of pride, of greed, of jealousy and envy, to renunciate anger, just to let it go, and cruelty and divisiveness, and dropping the belief that happiness is found in the outer world. That's big. Give it up. Understand love as humility and kindness. Again, no separation, no you or me, non-discrimination. That's all part of this. This produces understanding, mutual understanding, reconciliation, also is compassion for the suffering of others. There is such a thing as self-compassion. Forgiving yourself is important as forgiving others. To do no harm, to understand that right thought erases the wrongs of the past. This is forgiveness. There's a saying in psychology, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. Once you explore it and understand it, you can forgive yourself, and that erases the past. The third step is right speech. I don't know if I'm going to get through this today. Maybe I should skip the Q&A and finish this. Let's see how we go. Right speech is to be conscious, to inspire, to choose to use your speech in a responsible way, to help others, to help them feel good, to help people be happy, to restore their faith, to feel better. It includes mindful compassion, deep listening, holding the space, just listening. You don't have to say anything. You know, when people appeal to you because they need somebody to talk to vent or express themselves or share their grief or their heartache, it's like you don't have to give them advice. You don't have to tell them that you know how they feel, because you don't. Just, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're going through this. I'm sorry for your loss. Just hold that space. Deep listening, to be a good listener, is such a gift. Part of right speech is choosing not to mislead people, deceive people, not to lie, or bear false witness. Probably the worst lie of all is to lie about another person. It's one of the commandments of Judaism. Right speech includes avoiding or refraining from divisiveness, anything that divides people. Gossip. People who talk about other people, that's not a great use of your time, your energy, or your speech, gossiping about people. Okay. Harsh speech. Be loving and compassionate. Not only will others benefit, but perhaps most importantly, you will benefit. And again, that makes sense when you accept the falseness of the separation of appearance. There is no distinction. If you help other people benefit through your speech, through your kind speech, then you will benefit. You will know the reward. This is how you be happy and peaceful and loving and compassionate and empathetic, not by searching the world for the happiness out there. It's not going to be found out there. It's in your mind and in your heart. Number 4 is right action. See how this flows? Right thought, right speech, right action. You get that downward and outward flow. So right action, similarly, do no harm. This is nonviolence. This is compassion. Your physical behavior should be to support, to protect, and to save. You must avoid killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Those are the 3 admonitions in Buddhism. Don't kill, don't steal, and avoid sexual misconduct. You have to decide, if you're single, you have to decide what constitutes sexual misconduct. If you are married, betrothed, or in a faithful relationship, committed relationship, then to dishonor yourself, to take up with someone else, to cheat, is sexual misconduct. There are other forms of that we're going to touch on in a minute. To refrain from the use of intoxicants is part of right action. No drugs or alcohol. If you want to wake up, drugs and alcohol are not going to help you wake up. You won't find happiness, right? You may think there's something called a happy drunk, but that's obviously an illusion. It's not a happiness you'll even remember once you sober up. And I don't have to go on about the tragedy that comes out of intoxication, out of being drunk or using chemistry to whack yourself out. We call it getting high, but it's actually feeling nothing. It's an odd thing about getting stoned. No, I'm not going to forbid it. It's up to you. You're adults. You do what you want, but this is not the path to happiness. I'll tell you, in college in the 60s, LSD opened some doors for me, but it was not a lifestyle that I was going to pursue. Once I saw what I saw, I immediately turned to Eastern philosophy. I got a whole new take on so many things in my life. It just was such an eye-opener. But, and microdosing was becoming a thing in a controlled environment with professionals. But they're just doors that open. It's not a path that you walk. If you're relying on them, that's not good. So let's see. Killing includes animals, of course, and this is a problem for a lot of us who have been raised as meat eaters. Many vegetarians will not eat eggs or dairy or honey because they're animal products. But there is a whole school of thought that says if you refrain from eating flesh, whether it's fish, anything with a face, chicken, beef, pork, there's still room for you to consume eggs and dairy and honey if it's raised humanely by kind, loving people who love their animals in a humane setting. So it's up to you to figure that out. And what are you able to do? So what I'm able to do, speaking for myself in all honesty, is radically reduce my consumption of meat. But some of us have health conditions that require high levels of protein. It's very, very difficult to get all the protein that I need from legumes and nuts. And so we do what we can, all right? Nobody's going to judge you, or they're hypocrites. Remember last week? Judge not, lest ye be judged by the same measure. And insects, too. The idea of respecting the insect. If it runs from you, it's sentient. And do what you can to release them. If your house is invaded by cockroaches, you're going to have to do something, or spiders. We had an invasion of black widow spiders out here. They're deadly. They got in the house. They could get the cats. They could get one of us off to the hospital. If they stay outside, I'm not going to hunt them. But when they come inside, I got to do something. So maybe best to repel them, find a way of repelling them without having to kill them. And do what you can. Some people may seem way over the top, like liberating insects from a spider web. I don't know. That may be a bit much. You pour a boiling water down the drain, you just killed 3 billion microbes, bacteria. So, and you're going to run over ants in your car, and you do what you can do. We have to be realistic about this stuff. Again, it's about the impact that it has on you, not merely the animals that we relate to. 5, in the flow, right livelihood. So here we go, right speech and right action flowing into vocation, into career. Best to choose a vocation that helps us awaken, that supports right view, which of course is the oneness of all things. Do no harm in your career. And Buddha was specific about 5 careers that you must refrain from. Dealing in weapons, slavery and prostitution, dealing in meat products, slaughterhouse, butcher, raising cattle for consumption, intoxication, selling spirits, selling drugs, selling alcohol, and lastly, poisons. I don't know if any of you are in the poison trade, but you know, insecticides, herbicides, it's pretty clear to us at this point, as we understand ecology and the environment, that we end up poisoning ourselves. That it rains acid, and that every cup of water that you draw out of the drain has what they used to call tranquilizers. What do they call them now? Antidepressants. The environment is so saturated with antidepressants and even antibiotics that they're in the water, they're in the rain. It rains pharmaceuticals. So that's sort of crazy. That's going to catch us in the long run. Number 6 is right effort. Now we're moving beyond career. And remember, these last 3, just to remind you, the first 2 of the 8 steps are about wisdom. The next 3, 4, 5, and 6, are about ethics and morality, embodiment of virtue. And now these last 3 are about the study of the mind. So that's 6, 7, and 8. 6 is right effort. This is also known simply as diligence, to abandon negative mental states, anger and ill will, to cultivate a positive, healthy mental attitude with compassion and wholesomeness. I love that word, wholesomeness. Whole, right? Right effort includes being patient, kind and loving, tolerant, friendly, generous and forgiving, and replace our self-righteousness with humility. Remember last week in the Beatitudes, blessed are the meek. So right effort then flows into right mindfulness. This is sometimes called the sacred presence. I mispronounced that. Sacred, not sacred. Sacred presence. That's the here and now. Free from judgment, without attachment, no clutching, grabbing, holding on for dear life. You're already everywhere equally present. And beyond being called the sacred presence, number 7, right mindfulness is also known as the gateway to the deathless. To practice mindfulness, a term that's being, well, it's increasingly popular, increasingly understood in the West. It means really to see things clearly as they truly are. The word vipassana the meditation where you watch your breath and identifies the watcher. Vipassana is this Sanskrit word that means to see things clearly as they truly are, to see beyond the veil, to be open and non-judgmental, to be aware of your intentions and your motives, the why of things, behind your thoughts and your feelings and your speech and your behavior. You get that flow, an intention becomes a thought driven by a feeling, manifested as a speech and a behavior. To be calm and peaceful in the moment, and to recognize the change and the flux of the mortal world, of the physical world, always in change, against an ultimate reality that is impermanent and non-changing and fixed. And number 8 is right concentration. This is samadhi. This is a steadiness of being, a trusting life. There's a crazy idea for you. What if you just trusted life and realized that you could relax and give up the micromanaging, as if every day we have to hold everything together, like the whole world would fall apart, or your life certainly would go to pieces like Humpty Dumpty if you didn't hold it all together and micromanage everything, the source of all of our stress and unhappiness. Right concentration includes a quality of meditation where you experience your connection to the timeless. You abide in the absorption of pleasant states of experience, so-called bliss, joy, again, samadhi, satori, calm, safe, relaxed, focused. And then when your meditation ends, your mindfulness meditation or your concentrated meditation ends, you carry this awareness, this joy, this freedom, liberation with you into the world, into space and time. But a nice place to end this is to accept that it's okay for you just to let go, to give up, to surrender in the best sense of the word. Doesn't mean not be responsible. It just means give up the struggle part. And only then do you begin to understand who you truly are, who we truly are. Trust life. Trust life. Faith. Faith doesn't mean believe the preacher who wants you to tithe so he can drive a Ferrari and live in a $20 million mansion. That's not faith. It's to trust the whole process. Like everything's fine, just as it is. Let it be. Even above the darkest clouds and the stormiest weather, the sun's still shining up. You get up above those clouds, it's still a sunny day. And I came across a quote I want to end with by Dag Hammarskjöld, who was the very first Secretary General of the United Nations. And this strikes me as so profound. And we have about 10 minutes for Q&A here, but again, since a lot of you folks have been bashful about speaking up, and understandably, just put something in the chat box. Just type a comment or a brief little question in the chat box, and Mindy will read it. And if you want to expand on it, then we can open up the mic. But surely you have some comment on this. I'd love to share. Don't see it's a way of connecting with each other, of engaging. And then somebody else said, yeah, I was thinking that same thing. Oh, that helps a lot. So I love this quotation. He said, "In the point of rest, at the center of our being, we encounter a world where all things are at rest in the same way. Then a tree becomes a mystery, a cloud a revelation, and each human a cosmos of whose riches we can only catch glimpses. The life of simplicity is simple, but it opens to us a book in which we never get beyond the first syllable of the first page. It's so glorious, so magnificent, so boundless that it's unimaginable, and yet it's waiting to be discovered a little bit at a time, a syllable, a syllable at a time. Can you see the tree at rest? Can you experience the peace? Of course you can, even in a city park, much less going into a forest or a mountain meadow. And how okay the plants and the animals are with the way things are. Just why are we not feeling that same rest, that same peace? And then the tree, a common everyday tree, one of trillions of trees, becomes fascinating. Wow, look at the magnificence of that tree, the majesty of that tree. And then you read about the way in which science has discovered that trees talk to each other. Like the Ents in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, they actually do communicate with each other. And how the plants talk to each other and alert each other. And it's just so magnificent. It's just, again, just so awesome. That word is certainly overused. Truly awesome. Or if I was British, I would say brilliant. It's just magnificent beyond words. And
Michael,
so,
do you want to see if people have questions? I just wasn't sure.
and so inspiring. Yeah. It's exactly what I want to do.
Great. Anybody have anything to add or something to comment on? Now is your time.
Yeah, again, just put it in the chat box if
You can speak right up even if you want to.
Mindy, somebody told me last week they had put something in chat box and we missed it. So I don't know if it was maybe at the very end of the class.
There was one that was at the very end that we just didn't have time for. I think that was last week.
Oh,
And
I see.
I did mention to bring it up again, or yeah, it was way late and just couldn't take it in the class, could take it after the class. Anybody have anything to say, anything to add?
We've got 5 more minutes here. We started at 5 after, so I can go till another 5 minutes. And while you're thinking about putting a comment or a question in the box.
Gary has something when you're done.
Well, good. Let me just take 20 seconds then to say, in case you dropped in the middle of this, the last 2 classes go together, the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, which is the intro to Sermon on the Mount, the core, the summary, the how-to manual of Christianity, and today's presentation on the Noble Eightfold Path, the fourth of the Four Noble Truths, are meant to be side by side. I did this deliberately so that you could compare from a secular point of view, from a non-religious point of view, these beautiful, ancient, proven guidelines. Again, the pathless path to finding happiness. That's bottom line. Peace, happiness, understanding, lid-lifting revelations that give your life meaning and purpose, and create loving relationships that allow you to be so important in the lives of others and fill your own heart with goodness. It's not limited to religion. It's philosophy, it's psychology, it's the humanities, it's sociology, it's all of this. And it's available to us, provided we're willing to own up to it and study and practice, devote ourselves to it. So who do you say has a comment, Mindy?
Larry has something to say.
Larry, go right ahead, Larry.
When you were when you were talking, something occurred to me. I've heard this, read this many times, but without suffering, we couldn't know joy. And I think that's a really important concept.
It is. It's why there is suffering in the world, or another way of stating it is, if God is so loving and wonderful, why is there evil? Um, one of my favorite ways of thinking about this, and I think it's Francis Bacon that gets credit for having coined the phrase or the concept, that diamonds appear most beautiful against a black background. And I've also heard, without darkness, you would never see the stars. So the contrast, the adversity, the suffering, the grief, the agonies of living are an opportunity to examine our motivation and to turn toward a better understanding and more sublime practice of these spiritual principles, of these virtues, again, for the mutual benefit of all. So I totally agree with that. Yeah, thanks. What do you think about that?
I think I think I think. Sorry, dropped my microphone. Uh, I think I heard you once say that there is no such thing as a one-sided coin, and I think that really um, covers it.
Yeah, that's true. The only object that has one side that I know of is the Mobius strip. And that's that infinity shape, with a half twist in it. Yeah. We're very limited by our brain's tendency to see everything in three dimensions of space and a fourth dimension of time. It's just when people, scientists and others, begin to talk about other dimensions, most of us just go blank. I know I do. It's like, what would be a fifth dimension? What does it mean when a quantum physicist says it appears there are 11 dimensions? I don't know what to do with that, except I know things exist outside of these four because of the principle of entanglement. That particles can be several light years apart, 100 light years apart, 1,000 light years apart. But if they have a relationship in a star, let's say, before that star explodes, then an energy that impacts one will immediately impact the other, regardless of the distance. So that's faster than space and time would allow. There's got to be something beyond the continuum of space and time that we know that is whole and instantaneous, no space. And I'll just add to that, Einstein was the one who proved that at the speed of light, time stands still. If when the clock strikes noon, you could saddle up and jump on that light beam and ride it out into space, obviously at the speed of light, every time you look down, it's always going to be noon. If you can get your head around that time stands still at the speed of light, then time stands still at the speed of consciousness. And our conscious awareness doesn't know time, it's just the eternal now. I love that. It's meaty, worthy of some worthy of some reflection. Anybody else, Mindy? Thank you, Larry.
I don't see anyone.
All right, well, let's wrap it up. Again, I so much appreciate your willingness to be here live whenever you can. I think there is a group mind that we enter when we do the meditation together. if and when you're unable to join us, you will have a few days from now, usually by midweek, both the YouTube video and of the entire class, and then the podcast is the class without the Q&A and without the meditation. And that's on all podcatchers. Let me know if you ever come across a podcast player that does not have the Ageless Wisdom Mystery School on it. And we'll make sure that happens. But I've yet to find one. We may deliberate attempts to be on your favorite podcast player, your favorite podcatcher, plus the YouTube. Please subscribe, helps us out. Like and comment. I love the comments. I'll respond to your comments on YouTube. And you can always email me at the newsletter address, which is awmysteryschool@gmail.com. Thank you so much. I'd like you to unmute and say goodbye to everybody. Hello, and have a wonderful week. And namaste, aloha, and salam to each of you. We'll talk to you next Sunday. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
There we go. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael and team.
Thank you. Have a blessed week.
You all as well. Thank you.